for, today's music. And the reason it's a great song is
you like switching to an FM DJ there.
Yes, it reminds people.
It's today's music.
It reminds people of old school kind of funky music. Well, that wasn't lost on the heirs of Marvin Gaye's estate, nor of the people that own the rights to the Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton and Bootsy Collins' old song. So now there's these letters that are being sent to Robin Thicke. Hey, you ripped us off. You ripped off our deceased grandfather, Marvin Gaye. You need to pay us. Hey, you ripped off George Clinton and Bootsy Collins, and we own their stuff. You need to pay us because Robin Thicke, Blurred Lines, is a ripoff of these old classic funk 70s songs.
All right, so what do you want to do? You want to play
what I'll say is this. Robin Thicke and his guys, they went to court, Pharrell Williams and a guy named Clifford Harrison. They said, hey, we didn't rip anybody off. Judge in California, federal court judge, before we get sued and we get caught up in all this nonsense, we want you to decide whether or not we ripped them off. So let's let the McGraw in the Morning audience decide whether or not Blurred Lines that we just played sounds a lot like a Marvin Gaye song from the 1970s. Here's the Marvin Gaye.
All right,
that's Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye. You pointed out that's a
song from Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights.
Which is where I know that song from. I know nothing about music.
Yes.
And when I first heard this Robin Thicke song, I thought, oh, it's a remake from that song from Boogie Nights. That's the first thing that came into my head. Now, I don't know if legally it's still whatever, but...
Well, that's just the first set of complainants and potential plaintiffs. That's the Marvin Gaye song, Got to Give It Up. Now, there's another song, Gotta Love George Clinton. And you don't know much about music, but you know George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelic.
Who doesn't know about the Supersonic Funkaphonics?
Right. Bootsy Collins, that whole group.
Yeah.
So here is Parliament Funkadelic's song, Sexy Ways, also from the 70s, also claiming Blurred Lines ripped them off.
Just wanna say that I love your sexy ways. Come on and thrill me, mama. Oh, thrill me, girl.
All right, so that's
I don't know if that one
doesn't sound like it.
That doesn't sound exactly like it. No.
So here's the standard. The standard is when these copyright owners, and they do own the copyright, the Marvin Gaye estate people to the song "Gotta Give It Up," they have the right to stop people from using their song without getting paid some kind of royalty.
Sure.
I mean, you can say, hey, you can't use it, or you can say, hey, you can use it, but you got to pay me.
Right.
So these types of cases really got noticed when one of the most famous musicians of all time, George Harrison, former Beatle, got sued by the people that wrote the Chiffons song, He's So Fine, over his song that he had back in the 70s, My Sweet Lord. So this lawsuit went on for almost 20 years. It almost destroyed George Harrison's ability to be creative. The judge ruled in that case against George Harrison. He got a big judgment against him for almost all the profits of My Sweet Lord. So let's do this. Let's play the My Sweet Lord George Harrison and the He's So Fine and see how similar they are.
All right.
Then let's go back and see about this Robin.
Okay, so this is a lawsuit in which Harrison,
George
Harrison, formerly of the Beatles, loses, and the judge says you stole this from these other people, or you took it.
He said that it was a copyright infringement, but that it was a subconscious copyright infringement. He wouldn't even say that George Harrison did it intentionally, but it was the 70s.
All right,
everybody was on drugs.
So it was a subconscious.
Let's take a listen to what a subconscious copyright infringement. Here is George Harrison's My Sweet Lord.
All right.
Okay, got a good sample. It's a great song, classic song. George Harrison, being the transcendental meditationist that he was, wanted to do something nice for Hare Krishna, so he wrote that song. Well, apparently, it was so transcendental.
Is that a really Hare Krishna?
Oh, absolutely it is.
Really?
And he was so transcendentally meditating that he might just have channeled the Chiffons' "He's So Fine."
He's so fine. Wish she were mine. That handsome boy over there. One with the wavy hair. I don't know how I'm gonna do it.
I don't see it at all.
Okay, McGraw
I
doesn't
don't-
see it. Andrew sees it.
Really?
He's shaking his head.
Yeah, it kind of has the same. It has a lot of the same melody to it.
Well, Andrew's a fish head.
Here's
so.
what's really interesting is the
My
way
Sweet
in
Lord
which
is my favorite song, so I hate the fact that I didn't know this about. My
So
Sweet
you're
Lord.
really a
So this is.
Chiffons
well,
fan.
you're in.
So really, I'm a chiffon. That's exactly
You're either
right.
a Chiffons fan or you're a closeted Hare Krishna.
buckle
Krishna.
up, because here's how they did it. The standard of this is whether they're substantially similar. So in the George Harrison case, they brought in all these musical experts to come and talk about the beats per minute and the this and the stuff that only music
Right.
nerds would know. As it turns out, even George Harrison's own experts said, yeah, except for the fact that He's So Fine is kind of faster than My Sweet Lord, it's almost done just in a different, starts in a different key.
Right.
It's almost exactly the same. But he didn't do it on purpose.
Okay.
So the judge ruled that this was subconscious copyright infringement. And George Harrison got hit with a $1.6 million copyright infringement judgment against him, which was almost the entire profits of the song that My Sweet Lord, or the box set album
Right.
set that My Sweet Lord was on, which I think is All Things Must Change or All Things Must Pass, right? Okay. So almost all the money that George Harrison made as a solo artist, he had to sort of disgorge and give back to the people that owned the rights to He's So Fine. Here's where it gets really weird. George Harrison and the Beatles had this manager for a while named Alan Klein. When they took on Apple Records, they started Apple Records, and both Ringo Starr and John Lennon hated this guy and quit. Well, George Harrison, because he was kind of a nicer, Hare Krishna guy, he kept this Alan Klein as his manager for a while. Guess who ended up getting the rights to He's So Fine and getting almost most of the money awarded to him?
They're the same guy?
Alan Klein, his agent. When the judge ended up finding out that Alan Klein not only was the one behind the scenes getting the money, but was leaking confidential information about the George Harrison sort of defense team to the plaintiffs for the Chiffons, he was double dealing. They cut it from $1.5 million down to about $500,000, which is what Alan Klein paid to get the record label that owned the rights to the Chiffons. This went on from 1976 all the way until 1992,
Wow.
which almost was the rest of George Harrison's life. So this kind of stuff, even though we didn't really hear it, it really is kind of technical stuff. So let's do this. I think we kind of all agree that the Parliament Funkadelic song doesn't really sound like that.
Okay, right.
But let's go back and take a look at or listen to.
Let's play Marvin Gaye first.
Let's play Marvin Gaye, and then
We'll play the Robin
Robin
Thicke one.
Thicke.
All right, so here's the Marvin Gaye song. Okay, that's Marvin Gaye.
it's Marvin Gaye.
Here's Robin Thicke.
That's Parliament Funkadelic.
Okay. Now I got that. Now I have to. Now I got to go back. I
Gotta
have
go
to,
back. Gotta go
I
back
clear,
into Marvin Gaye.
I got to clear my palate again.
Exactly.
All right, here's
Bring
Marvin
him some
Gaye.
sherbet.
All right, now let's hear Robin Thicke.
Okay.
There you go. I think it sounds just like it.
I mean, the fish head down there, who loves
I feel like this is
George
close.
Harrison.
I feel like this is closer than the
closer
My Sweet
than the
Lord
George-
and.
I mean, this sounds like it's the exact same song.
Who was
Right.
it?
It sounds like a remake.
And what's interesting about the case that's going on is that the Marvin Gaye estate heirs and the Parliament Funkadelic ownership people are not the ones that sued Robin Thicke. Robin Thicke and his producers are going to court proactively and asking for declaratory judgment actions. Hey, judge, listen to these. We want to come to court and clear our name now ahead of time. The way those two things sound, they better have had their ducks in a row and their experts say that they're not substantially similar.
Well, I like the supersonic funkaphonic sound. That's Scott Sherman, ladies and gentlemen. Stay right there. Let me tell you about Ted Drewes, because this weekend is a perfect weekend for Ted Drewes. Holy mackerel. We're going to be in the mid-80s all weekend long. Cubs, Cards. It's one of the last weekends before the fall really sets in, right? The kids are back at school, so take the pickup truck, take the Woody, bring it to Ted Drewes, 6726 Chippewa, 4224 South Grand. Go the extra 5 miles, sit on the back of the truck, open up the trunk, enjoy your favorite frozen custard, and watch the world go by. That's why we live in St. Louis, because we can do things like go to Ted Drewes. It's a St. Louis tradition. Your grandparents did it. Your grandkids will do it. Whether it's the Dottie, the All Shook Up, my personal favorite, the McGraw Concrete, half Oreo, half Heath. That's George Harrison. We're talking about how he was busted for subconsciously stealing that song from the Chiffons.
That's right.
Yeah, and then we're talking about this Robin Thicke
Subconsciously.
controversy over whether or not he stole that song from Marvin Gaye. Really interesting stuff. Anything else on this you want to get to?
Well,
there's a couple of things I want to clear up from last week.
No, I think that we will see, but be careful what you wish for, Mr. Thicke, because the judge may well find that you did violate the copyright.
I would like for you to apologize to all of my listeners for the gross violation of Fred Grandy's personal space last week.
Yes, we told what we said may have been a wives'
There was
tale.
no we. There was no we in this. You
Yes.
told the story.
I said I had heard a story. I did not assert it as a fact.
Yeah, because your friend heard this. Your friend told you this
My
story.
friend told me this story
20 years ago.
1996. I was working on a political campaign for Mitt Romney's sister-in-law.
Okay.
And he, my friend Trent, he was the communications guy. I was the dirty tricks guy. And he said, hey.
Why does that not surprise me?
Well, hey. He said, hey, you want to hear a story about Fred Grandy? I said, sure. Congressman Gopher? He goes, yeah. And then he told the story about allegedly a guy got in an elevator with Congressman Fred Grandy of Iowa, formerly he was, Bertram Smith? What was it? Something Smith.
Okay.
Purser Smith. Anyway. And
Yeoman Purser
Yeoman Purser
Yeah.
Smith. So he said, hey, Congressman, where you going? Lido Deck? And then summarily he was fired allegedly by Fred Grandy. Turns out.
Now, hold on. You told that story last week on the
I told
air.
that story. I said, yeah.
And what did I say?
You said that sounds like an urban legend.
I said,
if
I don't believe it.
ever heard it.
Right.
So, being the fact checker that I am, I went, did a little research. So, McGraw makes a good point because we don't want to say anything about Fred Grandy. They might have fired somebody 20 years ago. So, I sent you a
link from Snopes.
link from Snow, and as it turns out,
It's completely false.
it's totally false. Not only is it totally false, there's a good chance that Fred Grandy planted the story himself. But he did have a reputation as a jerk. So I'm told. In my opinion.
So you're told.
I hear.
Even though people told me about him.
These are it's the
So I'd like to,
telephone game.
I'd like to, on behalf of Scott Sherman.
Yes.
Because radio hosts are getting fired for every time somebody says something else on their show around here. So
I've heard.
You're
Not
the
around
Jack,
here.
You're the Jack Clark to my Kevin Slayton. So I don't want Fred Grandy suing us and then have the management having to fire all of us. So my 1,000 apologies to Fred Grandy. Quickly, I got your sponsor. Who's your sponsor?
St. Louis Home Retention Group. I got an email yesterday. These are very fine people, the local guys. They save people's homes. They reached a milestone, the 500th positive action of homeowners by St. Louis Home Retention Group. This means this. Since they've started doing this about 5 or 6 years ago, 500 people have either had modifications done or had foreclosures stopped. 164 stopped foreclosures, 244 modifications. These guys get the job done. Over a 90% success rate. They are saving people's houses. They are really making a difference, and it's something they're proud of. And I think it's something that's a testament to the kind of work that they do. And a lot of those people have been KTRS listeners. St. Louis Home Retention Group, the local guys, they're averaging about 10.5 modifications. These are federal government program modifications where people would have lost their house. And 6 people per month, 6 families per month, were looking at a foreclosure date to have the trucks come to their house and be forced out of their homes, have their kids forced out of their schools. Not when St. Louis Home Retention Group is on your side. 636-527-5121, 636-527-5121, or stlouishomeretentiongroup.com.